Well, hello there. Thank you for joining us once again here on Good Morning Uganda. We're coming to you live from UBC TV right here at Nile Avenue, opposite Parliament of Uganda. Now listen up. Today is not just any ordinary Wednesday morning. This is a very special Wednesday morning where we get to celebrate one of the greatest men. I would really want to call him a man of strong character, a man who truly believed in several aspects that we need in life, a man who believed in integrity, a man who believed in creativity, and a man who really had a strong conviction in whatever he had to say concerning the political arena of then. I'm talking about Archbishop Janan Luwum. Now, if you didn't know what public holiday is, well, today is that day. I know sometimes some of us, we really get home because we know it's a public holiday, but you don't know what the day is all about. Today we are celebrating that man, and we'll also be looking at how sometimes maybe we need to incorporate some of these things that he really stood for in our lives. My name is Philomena, Mastiko, and yes, it is another great morning. I still have the full house with me, Felix, Nkunda. I do have Robert Kirabo, and we also do have Mollen, Kenyena. Well, we will also be expecting you to be part of this special talk, this special edition. So you can feel free to get onto all our social media platforms, and we are also live on YouTube, so you don't want to miss that. Maybe before we get into all that, I also need to know what these two gentlemen and this one lady really think about today. And probably I'll start off with you, Mollen, Kenyena. Good morning.
Well, a very good morning to you, Philo. Yes, like you've put it clearly, it is a good morning. And while, we have all these warm thoughts of why we're celebrating this day, it's also a painful memory to see such a great leader with such commitment to his faith has had to, fall to that kind of cruelty with regard to political point. And I think it brings a good point even today as we look at most different political arenas on how the church comes in and what clergymen should be doing to make sure that, we all lead to a country that we are proud of. So I think for me this day, I do celebrate it with that kind of warm thought, but as well painful memories of what, someone who is as brave and cultivating as that could have done if he had lived longer, just to see a country in such a place that he had thought God was leading us to.
Well, that's really, really amazing. The fact that, he's not around with us, we also do appreciate that he left something for us that we can probably carry forward. Maybe I need to find out from Felix. Good morning, Felix.
Good morning, Philo.
The significance of this day. I'm great.
Absolutely, it's a big day, and definitely the whole country does take cognizance into celebrating such a day. But also keeping in mind the purpose of faith in changing national political trajectories. Now, also you must understand that most recent, you notice that church has an effect in how politics are run.
Oh, yes.
And this is probably common in all other jurisdictions. Now, of course, looking at this particular case of Janan Luwum, there's cause for us to celebrate. Now, as you said earlier, not many people will know the reason as to why they are staying home. But nevertheless, the biggest cause of the same is definitely about persecution.
Yes.
Persecution, or what one would call Christianity versus political times, and of course relevancies and appreciations. So basically that's what we will be talking about, I guess, throughout the show. What's this day about? What's the relevancy? Why should we be celebrating this day? I mean, all these kind of things.
Exactly. I know for very many Ugandans, for as long as you know that you're not expected at work the next day, that's it. You only want to go and sleep and just not to be at work. But you just need to take an extra effort to find out why. What's the relevant? How does this impact you as a Ugandan citizen? What are some of the lessons you have to learn? And probably this Uncle Bob will be telling us. Good morning, Kirabo.
A lovely morning to you, Madam Mastiko, Felix, and the lady just next to me, that is Mollen, and of course our precious viewers. Good morning to you. Philo, when we talk about the late Archbishop Janan Luwum, one thing that comes to my mind is standing up for the right thing. Sometimes when people are in a comfortable zone, they feel not concerned about what is happening to the rest. But look, this was the Archbishop of that Anglican church, not only in Uganda, but it went far as Burundi, Boga, Zaire, but he stood up and spoke against the gross abuse of human rights during Amin's regime, which was a time when everyone knew that was a no-go area to go, because you definitely knew that it could end your life if you took that direction. But as an archbishop, he could have kept quiet and had a comfortable zone. But he said no. When people are being killed day and night, when there's gross abuse of human rights, I'll stand up, I'll speak. And to me, that is one of the things that comes to my mind, that we should always stand out for the oppressed and for the truth, no matter how less we are concerned or less of an impact it could be to us.
Well, Robert, maybe you'd actually tell me, we have a tendency as, humankind, where we think probably we should mind our businesses, even when you see somebody doing the wrong thing. If you look at your life, do you actually think you've done that? Do you think you've called out people who have been doing wrong, people who probably feel like they are untouchable? Do you think you've done that in your life?
I have tried, and I feel I've done it, because at one time it all comes back to you. For example, if someone is oppressing another person, you might feel comfortable. The next you know is your daughter, is your son, is your mother, is your relative. So there is a circle of events, and when you don't act in one way or the other, you feel the pinch, the pain. It may not be directly according to you. One time I was telling someone that in villages where we grew, we always had this rich person who educated a number of children, that even he wasn't concerned, never had any blood lineage, they never had, today it's not that very common, but previously you would find a person educating about 20, 10, and it was a responsibility. Today it's all for us, for ourselves. But then I tell them that those young boys, as you're driving your children in this school car, going to school, you seem not bothered. They're the very children that when your daughter is at university and now you can't drive her, she's coming back home late, they're the ones that are going to waylay her, sometimes even rape her. So if you're concerned on how best do we help these people, at the end of the day, it gives you security. So I always know that these things come back to us. I do my best. I do all it takes to ensure I try my best in fighting all forms of injustice and promoting at least decent livelihood for everybody close to me.
Well, I would also love to hear from Felix Nkunda. Or Felix, I know. I would really want to find out, do you think people should just be reminded, or you feel like maybe this person is mature, they should figure this out, they should actually see that they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing? Would you call out a person if they're not really doing, despite the age, by the way?
Yeah, I don't take it for granted. Sometimes people clearly don't know. Sometimes, even if it's not about the age, it's not about, sometimes it's about exposure. Sometimes it's about environment and all these kind of things. So I wouldn't mind. I would take some time to talk to people about the things that probably should be done right. But Robert did say something about someone taking care of. I mean, I don't know where you stay, Robert, or where you come from, but all these things still happen. Clearly, maybe in your circles, I don't know. But these things are still happening so much, and I can tell you, I can give you a million examples of these things. But the only bad thing about it is that every other time you do something with the expectation of getting back, you're only preparing yourself to be hurt for disappointment. That's all I can say.
Well, expectations, like I always chant, should be very low. You should do something out of a good cause, which actually gets me to find out from Mollen. Do you think this actually makes sense? You call out people because you don't expect anything, but you probably think they should just be doing the right thing.
Well, I still think that whether it is, something they've done wrong or something you think they should be doing right, it's important to call people out. And I'll tell you from experience, once or twice I have called people out and I feel a victim, because at one point, imagine calling out your boss and you tell them, no, this is not how it's supposed to be done. And before you know it, you actually are losing that job. So I have had that experience where I had to lose my job for like a month just because I called someone out and told them, you know what, no, we cannot do things like this. So I think it's the boldness, and it also takes you putting everything on the line, because I knew at the end of the day I could have lost my job, but I was bold enough to say, no, I cannot work like this, or this shouldn't be like this. So I think that what we're lacking today is people who are bold enough to put everything on the line, to just have that kind of martyrdom, let me call it that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, if I did call out somebody, I would want to have an expectation. I expect you to change, especially if it's for the good thing. So I'm not going to do the calling out and I just look on. I do have expectations. Well, the celebrations are going to be happening at the Kololo Independence Ground. And of course, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni will be around and will be able to grace this function. And as Good Morning Uganda right here on UBC TV, we'll be giving you all the details step by step. So make sure you don't go anywhere. Now, getting back to this morning, we do have to go through some of the stories that made the headlines last night, and that is both on the local and international scene. Of course, coming in from Robert, Kirabo, Mollen, and Felix. Starting with you, Robert.
We'll begin with yesterday's event at Kolo Ceremonial Grounds, where His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was the chief mourner at the service that was held to honor the life of the former cultural leader of the Itesot, that is Papa Osman Augustine, who passed on the 15th of Saturday, where President Yoweri Museveni promised a government policy that will increase funding to cultural institutions. He was paying tribute to the deceased leader of the Itesot Culture Union, Emormor Augustine Usman, whose tenure he described as one with flying colors. Kolo Ceremonial Grounds was a place for the Requiem Mass to honor the deceased leader of the Itesot Culture Union, Papa Augustine Usman. The arrival of President Yoweri Museveni was right on time for the day's scheduled event. The day's mass was led by Father Francis Karumba, who rallied mourners to prepare for life after death. One speaker after the other, the deceased cultural leader was praised as a pillar of unity and development. President Yoweri Museveni, who was the chief mourner, recounted days when he first met the deceased. Museveni joined the rest of the mourners to observe the unity factor as a virtue that the deceased possessed. He called for more funding of cultural institutions to enable more development around the country using the role of traditional leaders. Papa Emormor Augustine Usman died on Saturday, the 5th of February this very year, with his burial slated for Saturday, 19th of the same month.
Well, away from that, a bit of good news from Ministry of Health. Now, the ministry has said that the country is out of the third wave of COVID-19. Now, statistics show that the current positivity rate is at 1%, with few positive cases in the 4 districts of Wakiso, Kabarole, Biji, and Kampala. There is some kind of relief as the country records very low positivity rate of COVID-19, that is at 1%. Now, therefore, the country is now out of the third wave of COVID-19 pandemic, according to the Ministry of Health. And this is good news, coming in at a time when the economy has just been fully reopened after close to 2 years of lockdown. Now, meanwhile, Ministry of Health has received 1,000 oxygen cylinders from the Danish government to beef up the country's medical oxygen reserves. However, Ministry of Health still encourages unvaccinated Ugandans to embrace the exercise, and those eligible for the booster dose to also do so. Now, as all COVID-19 countermeasures should be complemented by the standard operating procedures that include regular hand washing, social distance, and wearing of masks.
Well, good news indeed there. We now move to the August House, where Parliament is handling issues regarding discipline and use of wrong language insulting Parliament by Kenyena Member of Parliament Zake Francis Butebi. That is, Kenyena Municipality Member of Parliament has been sent to the Parliamentary Committee of Rules, Privileges and Discipline for allegedly misconduct. It was all during yesterday's plenary sitting, where his fellow legislators accused him of insulting the integrity of the House after he last week took to social media and used offensive language. Badegla IB Division Member of Parliament Honorable Martin Mapenduzi said he intends to move a motion to have Zake revealed of his duties as a commissioner for insulting the integrity of Parliament. Soroti West MP Jonathan Ebarua and Busia Municipality MP Geoffrey Macho said Zake's use of such language on his social media account was disrespecting the Speaker. Fellow backbenchers, Commissioner, also woman member of Parliament for Zombo, Esther Afoya-Chan, dissociated herself from the social media utterances of Honorable Zake. The Deputy Speaker then referred the matter to the Committee of Rules, Privileges and Discipline and directed it to report back to the House in a fortnight.
Well, in another story, we look at the reactions of the succession bill. Now, persons cohabiting must formalize their relationships so as to fit in the provisions of the Succession Bill 2021. Now, you write a will or give out property while they are still living. The Chief Executive Director, Legal Aid Service Providers Network, Sylvia Namubiru Mukasa, reacting on the bill, said that it is an achievement for vulnerable people, especially women. Now, she emphasized that members of parliament would not legislate for cohabitation because this would encourage many to stay in relationships that are not formalized. Now, early February 2022, the 11th Parliament passed the amendments to the Succession Act, bringing in new provisions and aligning the law with the recent court judgments that challenged the constitutionality of some sections. In 2007, the Constitutional Court in Law Advocacy for Women in Uganda ruled and declared that Section 2, 14, 15, 26, 27, 29, 43 and 44 of the Succession Act, Cap 162, and Rules 1, 7, 8 and 9 of the second schedule of the same Act were inconsistent and contravened Section 21 and 33 of the Constitution. Now, the provisions of the Act were discriminatory on the basis of sex and the act of defining legal hair as only male. According to civil society, the law had language which was not fitting for the current situation.
Into our international stories, we will pick it up from the first story while we're looking at Prince Andrew Useto's U.S. civil sex assault case with Virginia Giuffre. Now, Miss Giuffre had been suing the Duke of York, claiming he sexually assaulted her on 3 occasions when she was 17 years. Now, allegations he has repeatedly denied. Now, a letter filed to the U.S. District Court on Tuesday said the Duke and Miss Giuffre had reached an out-of-court settlement. It said the Duke, who makes no admission of liability, would pay an undisclosed sum to Miss Giuffre. Now, in a letter to the U.S. Judge Lewis A. Kaplan, Miss Giuffre's lawyer, David Bowies, wrote jointly with Prince Andrew's lawyer to say the pair had reached a settlement in principle. Now, still international stories, Israel Prime Minister Bennett meets Ibrahim King, Crown Prince in Manama. Now, Israel Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has met Bahrain's king of landmark visit to the oil-rich Gulf country 17 months after they established a relationship under 2020 U.S. sponsorship deal based in part of the shared concerns about Iran. Now, Bennett was making a one-day visit on Tuesday to the Island Kingdom, the first by an Israel leader. He was greeted by Crown Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, who also serves as the kingdom's prime minister and a military color guard at Manama's Gabiediva Palace. He told the Crown Prince that he came with a spirit of goodwill, of cooperation and standing together against the mutual challenges. Now back to Africa, where we see Sudanese boy rescued after 8 hours trapped in rubbish lorry. Now, a 10-year-old boy has been rescued after spending 8 hours in a crushing mechanism of a rubbish lorry in Sudan's capital, Khartoum. The boy, identified by police as Majed Mubarak Al-Brahim, was working with a truck run by the Khartoum State Cleaning Corporation. Now, it is believed he was pulled into the lorry as he threw in some rubbish. Now, he is now in hospital, but the police have given no further details about his condition.
Reality in Wales. Now, record-breaking flooding is becoming the new reality for communities, according to Natural Resources in Wales. 2 years after storms wreaked havoc across Wales, the environmental watchdog warned urgent action was needed to prepare for climate change. Now, the need to act now to prepare for climate impacts is more pressing than ever, as it said. Now, storms Kiara, Dennis, and George led to record rainfall in February 2020, and Errol Griffith played the councillor for Ronda Ward in Ronda Kayan Taff, where 44 houses were flooded, saying that people had been traumatized by the impact of the storms just before the pandemic hit Wales. Large parts of Ronda and Kayan Taff were completely unrecognizable, and of course the cleanups operations took up to 2 months into the period where we entered COVID-19 lockdowns, as she put it. Now, it was certainly a time of extreme trauma for many people, as Miss Griffith told BBC Press that the breakfast people in her own yard who had been flooded were still none the wiser about any measures taken to make sure that it would not happen again.
Very sad scenes right there. But this morning, we still want you to be part of this conversation, and in the spirit of Martyrdom, also considering the big event of the day where we are commemorating 45 years after the late Archbishop John Luwum died, because of his great character and also because of his martyrdom. We would want to find out from you what lessons you actually pick from this as a Ugandan. What lessons do we learn from Christian martyrdom in Uganda? Do tell us. Twitter hashtag is UBCGMU, and you can send us an SMS or even a WhatsApp message on the number 0709 602 592. We'll surely be getting into your feedback, and maybe before we go for the inspirational song that will probably pick us up and also let us know what we need, some of these strengths that we need in our daily lives. I know Uncle Bob always has something amazing and interesting that he has to tell us right about now.
Well, today is a public holiday and many of you are home. I want to believe that. But and if you're at work, at least there's some lightness of the jobs you have to do. So ensure you get yourself. This is a must that everybody must have. It must be in your fridge. It must be in your car. Wherever you are, you must ensure that you've enjoyed or you've tasted, hallelujah, jinga tea or hallelujah, tamarind drink. This will boost your immune system, and this also does the same. But in addition to this, many will celebrate and enjoy. At the end of the day, you have hangover. This does magic and wonders to your brothers and sisters that enjoy the opaque bottle.
Well, I hope that can actually come in handy, whether you're at work or at home. I think while you're watching what is happening at Kololo Independence Grounds, I think it's ideal for you to grab yourself a bottle. Felix, you feel like you are in total disagreement with this, are you?
Do you know what the opaque bottle is? Just out of curiosity. Chirabot keeps talking about the opaque bottle. Do you know what the opaque bottle is?
I do know the opaque bottle.
The bottle where you can't see the other side. I don't know, is it opaque after you take the bottle or when you take it? Is the opaqueness in the bottle?
The more you take the bottle,
you become opaque.
The more your eyes are compromised and senses of vision.
That makes sense.
But at least associated with opaque bottles, and that came in from Ministry of Health. I don't know whether you guys had that.
Oh,
there are
yes.
there are some chemicals that are being put into this
now,
bottle.
be very specific.
No,
some were found with Viagra content.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yes.
the ministry
yes,
came out
they
to
were.
actually
And
they were
what
banned.
call
So,
them?
and for me, I laughed at this. This is my opinion. When the ministry came out and declared, I won't mention the brand, that they have found elements of Viagra, I'm like, isn't this further marketing this product?
But
Do you know
I
how
don't think
many
it's
would run
marketing.
for it because of that element?
I want to think that for your health, this is not something you should be running for. And I had to applaud ministry for coming out to say, no, we no longer want this. So guys, while you celebrate with these opaque bottles, be careful. I'd always make it a
Not
point
to
to
consume
read.
Viagra.
Yeah, to know the contents of what you're taking. Or even let it be a brand that
But
you have to be sure
you
of.
think when you go to a bar, you have time to read what is the content of this?
What is that?
Do you
But some
homework
people,
before?
Felix, just look at the alcoholic content.
Yes.
How
You know,
many
each
of
this
even
drink.
out of
Some will
They
say
do.
who
no.
has time for that?
Some will
They
want
do.
something.
At the end of the
to
day,
kick them
yes,
off,
you're in the
very
bar to
fast.
get drunk. You don't there to compare
That is why
contents
one
and
would
what.
say
and-
maybe Nile is 16, this is 12, the other
In
is
fact, I have had
47%. So
that
if someone
people
wants to
learned
be
how to
done
drink,
early,
learned how
enjoy
to
life for some
sort
time, they'll go for higher alcoholic content. Then one will say, tomorrow I'm going to work. I just need something light, just to.
It also depends on the intent. If you you're going to get drunk, really, yeah, you would look for a drink that has high alcoholic content. But I also believe that for somebody who really wants to consume Viagra as Viagra, you should be able to go and buy Viagra. There is no need for you as a producer.
the market?
I don't really subscribe to the whole idea of people or producers incorporating the Viagra in the drink, because someone wants a plain drink. They don't want the contents of the drink.
But how many people do you think have the boldness to show up in the pharmacy and they're like, hey, I need this?
It's the confidence that they need. I mean, eventually you have to work on it.
Yeah, I feel like people are really skeptic about this, so they also find it easy to go and have a product that has that incorporated. But guys, not everyone wants that. So when you're making these brands, consider some of
But Mollen, I'm
people
getting
like Kirabo
confused.
who don't really need
Mollen,
it.
I'm getting confused. Are you for? Because you're
Or
here,
against
you're there.
No. I am against it because guess
Against
what?
eat the what?
And my advice is once, if you really love the bottle, do your research before you get to the bar, because we all know when you get to the bar, you won't be able to
Felix,
compare.
you have to
Do the
research
research.
I'm
and
going for
find
a
out.
paper. Am I going for an exam?
You're
What
the
research for?
excitement.
Yeah.
Well, as
Just carry your head, your mouth, and your throat.
And this
Simple.
disturbing
The rest
lady
is-
takes the Viagra content, the
Well.
man takes the Viagra content, then a mix.
this conversation needs to really continue on Friday. I really need to know what these gentlemen actually look for before they consume what they consume. But right now we are going for the song that will inspire us this very morning. And when we get back, we'll be getting into the Good Morning Uganda newsreel, where we'll be talking more about this special national public holiday. And later on, we'll be taking you to the roads to see the traffic situation. Not forgetting, Mollen will also be coming in with climate news, and we'll also be having the GNU agenda much later on. And also, Ruben will be here to give us what's happening, the details, the highlights in the arena of sports. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Authentically symbolic and insightful.
We should work so hard to evacuate this power.
Behind the headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odongto.
How to get points. Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Start the year off with my Airtel 4G smartphone. You get to enjoy free 1 GB data valid for a month and 100% bonus data every month for 3 months at only 250,000 Uganda shillings. This includes free data spread over 3 months worth 86,500 Uganda shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 Uganda shillings only. Visit the nearest Airtel shop and get one today. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Raising voices.
I feel happy when my mother spends time with me. I hope all mothers will like my mother. I want my mother to reach out to all mothers. She knows how important it is to be a good mother. I promise to help my mother inspire other mothers to change.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising voices.
Our Ugandan story isn't a new one. It's not about where we come from. It's about what can be accomplished when we're working, living, and growing together. It's about speaking the same language, the language of progress. We're Ugandans building Uganda with Ugandans, skilling Ugandans and developing competencies required in the oil and gas sector, partnering with Ugandan businesses to achieve greatness. We're here to build because at the end of the day, we're truly Ugandan.
You know, you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175 *94# to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy a 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175 *94# to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Dial *175# and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning and thank you so much for being with us on UBC TV. It is a public holiday and I believe some are home as we commemorate or remember the life of the late Janan Lumu. So in case you've been coming to town and you work in those offices that respect and honor these public holidays, then yes, I think you should change your direction. Of course, downtown for the traders, we keep you informed and letting you know that yes, maybe you may have few customers today because some people are going to come to work. The reason is it's not a bad day. It is a day when we are celebrating the life of the late Janan Jakaria Lumu, who was born in 1922 and died on the 17th of Feb 1977 on the orders of President Idi Amin by then. But before we go any further, let's first take a look at our poll question once again.
Well, what lessons do we learn from Christian martyrdom in Uganda? And that's the question that we want to put to you guys out there to be able to contribute. Now, we do take note that we have a lot of martyrs in this country. We take cognizance of the Christian martyrs, like Catholic martyrs, Protestant martyrs. And today in particular, we will be discussing martyrdom in relation to Archbishop, that is Janan Lumu. Now, we celebrate him as a country and the world at large. What do we learn? What lessons do we pick? What's there to learn from these people who have given their lives for what they have believed in. Be able to hit our social media platforms, that is on Twitter, hashtag UBCGMU, and on WhatsApp, 0709602592. Of course, also on Facebook, and for some of you who are streaming live on YouTube, be able to leave a message in relation to our poll question.
Talking about the life of Archbishop Janan Lumu, we must remember that this special person, by the time of his death, he was not only the Archbishop of the Anglican Church in Uganda, but to a great extent he was taking over a number of countries that included Boga Zaire, Rwanda, and Burundi. Now, one of the reasons, and the key reason why he was murdered on orders of Idi Amin, was the fact that he stood up against the gross abuse of human rights during Amin's time or rule. This was a hard thing because many people knew that Idi Amin would not tolerate any kind of such mannerism. It is said that on the 16th, on that morning, Archbishop was invited or called at the Nile Conference Center, I think that is currently Serena, and when he reached there, he was accused. He found when a military tribunal had sat, and he was accused of trying to overthrow Idi Amin or plotting to overthrow Idi Amin's government. He was locked up there, but then after he was transferred, that is to Nakasero, whereby then it was referred to as the Research Bureau offices were in Nakasero, and he was detained in cell C2. Now, one of the gentlemen that was in that cell where the Archbishop was detained writes a book titled The Dungeon of Nakasero by Wood Okello Lamoko, who gives you more of how these events moved on till the final death of Idi Amin. And in his book, he says the Archbishop was removed from that cell after being tortured, then later brought back in the evening, dressed in his log, but didn't have his watch and the ring because they were taken from him. It was later discovered the following day that it was purportedly that he had died in an accident with two of the ministers, which they believe was something that was stationed to make it seem like the Archbishop had died of an accident, yet actually he had sustained bullet wounds that one of the writers about him say they had them being fired. Felix, with those stories on how he met his creator and what he stood for, what stands out to you when you talk about the life of Janan Lumu?
Well, for me in particular, commemorating a day like today is very significant, and this I speak without fear of contradiction to the entire country regardless of lineage in terms of religion. Now, and the reasons are quite simple. One is that countries like Uganda have not been known for particular things. We have been known for very many other things, but not particular things. No wonder the likes of Janan Lumu have continuously to stand in the line of those few people that have been the tools of trade for countries like Uganda. The first connotation you made about his jurisdiction of operation is a unique one. That his authority stretched as far as Burundi, Rwanda, Boga Zaire. Basically, it was East and Central Africa. Bishop for that, Archbishop for East and Central Africa. Now, that in its own self was a plus for Uganda. Because if the people at the Canterbury thought it wise that we would have someone from Uganda to be in charge of East and Central region, it was a merit.
And very interesting about that, Felix, is that this young man had only spent 3 years as bishop.
Why do you say he was a young man? He wasn't a young man.
By the time he became Archbishop, he had only spent 3 years as bishop when the House of Bishops elected him or voted for him to be the Archbishop of that entire province.
Absolutely. Now, it's very significant for us not to miss that point, that Christianity in Uganda has been for a long time the beacon in East and Central Africa. Has been a beacon. Now, that is very much symbolic. It means that the Christian cluster in Uganda per se has a lot of contributed history towards the growth of this country. And that stretches far. That's why our provocation even is a bit wider than just Janan. It speaks about martyrdom. Now, second to it, the reflection of the death of Archbishop Janan Luwum, relating it to political times, there are a lot of things we must speak. Earlier on, you were talking about charisma for the people standing out and all this. But let me tell you, there is always a great friction between politics and Christianity or religion. And that springs as far as the Bible. For some of you who love to read the book that is the best book in the world, I must add, you have noted that there was even friction between the leaders. Why did Jesus die? Why did the Son of God?
There was a king coming to take over his position.
It was just
king.
simply about
That's
political.
why we saw Herod kill even all the young boys, thinking he's going to eliminate this newborn king.
I want to take you back even just before the time of Jesus. When you go back to the Old Testament, look at Cain and Abel. Most of the wars that were fought were about the conquests that were in the Old Testament were about politics and power. Now, the question is, and this has been a discourse in the domain of political science, what is the relationship between politics and religion? Is there a direct relationship between politics and religion? What is the role of religion in political construction? Why do you think it's important for the NRM government to celebrate Janan Luwum? Yet, seemingly, it was another political player who killed him. You get the point? That we are trying to restore religious relevancy in political formation. That's why you'll see, may he so rest in peace, the likes of Father Lokodos of this world have been part of governance, creating a human face to distinguish ourselves from political friction between religion and... Now, that's why you see countries have moved far and they're organizing what we call national days of prayer. You get... You have consultations. Now we have the interreligious. That is a almost, it is a national body, fully funded, but also a consultative think tank body for government. The result of why we have such attributions is because of such things. But we are using that happened then. We are learning lessons and we are trying to do better. So days like Janan Luwum Day celebrations have contributed greatly, vastly into what we see today. The religious freedoms are because of such persecutions. We have learned our lessons.
Well, before I ask Philo any question, let me just get from you, the millennials. Do you know a building in Kampala known as Janan Luwum House? Why it's situated?
Leave the millennials, I don't know, but please ask Philo.
Well, at least I know that there are a couple of schools that are named after him, so it clearly shows you that we do appreciate the value, we do appreciate the reputation that he left behind. So we're not doing bad.
Well,
we're not
just
doing bad.
Now to inform you and the rest, one of the magnificent buildings that you usually refer to as church house. Actually, if you look at, that's the foundation stone, that is Janan Luwum Church House. The Anglican one, if you just
where is Equity Bank?
Where there's Equity Bank, that tall building, that is Janan Luwum House.
I like the Robert puts it, that tall building, which is a short one.
Yeah, there are very many. Around there is a city house. There are so many.
It's outstanding.
It's outstanding.
Really
Yeah, it's outstanding.
Yes.
And that is the building of the Anglican Church, because Janan Luwum even then had a vision that the Church of Uganda should have something that brings money to it. And his vision was to have that structure, because there was a plot that belonged to Church of Uganda there for a very long time. And he had this in mind, that we need to have something where the church can earn from regularly to sustain the work of God. So he wasn't only on the spiritual element, preach the gospel, but he also knew that you must look at the economy and the welfare of the preachers. But what is outstanding when it comes to you, the millennials, when we discuss Janan Luwum?
Well, considering that we have read much about him and what he did, first of all, we would really love to appreciate the fact that the government, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, did acknowledge that this man was great. He did something amazing, and that is why he came out to actually give him the national public holiday for us to recognize back in 2015. So the fact that he did that, it clearly tells you if his importance, his purpose was recognized by His Excellency, it clearly tells you that there is a whole lot that is underneath it. And that is why I go on to appreciate the fact that by all means, Christianity, even religious, I do heavily believe that it is at the helm of everything that is done in the country. Whether it is significant, whether it is not, whether it is evident, whether it's not evident, there is something spiritual about everything. And in all sectors, by the way, I believe the economy, the politics, everything, the policies we come up with, all these, the ministries we have, there are certain values that are carried to these ministries, but courtesy of religion. I will talk about things like, because any country, you have certain goals that you are intending to meet. Okay, probably you are looking at a social unity, you're looking at social responsibility, you are looking at integrity. All these, I believe, are some of the character traits, are some of the aspects that you know, the late did stand out for. It's not easy for you to come out and stand against, stand your ground and talk to the whole head of state. I mean, we are talking about President Idi Amin, and you call him out on these social injustices that were happening. For a man who, quite the biggest part of population, if not all the population anyway, really felt that they were scared. He's not the kind of man that you would easily approach. But for a religious leader like him to come out and call him out and talk to him, tell him about all these social injustices that he was doing, the disappearances of people that were happening, he felt the need to call him out on that and tell him, you know what you're doing is not right. And he didn't even care about the consequences of that. That takes a certain level of boldness and daring. And I mean, many other people did not. I could say ministers, other, you know, maybe they did, all right? Maybe we don't know about that, but it was not significant. But for this man to come out and call him out on that, and he was punished for it, I mean, it tells you a whole lot. Yes, the president really took this into perspective and realized there's something not right but right about this man. He's really going to block me from doing what I want to do. And I mean, that clearly tells you it could have been wrong. So I think his conviction, the fact that he was very daring, the fact that he looked at the bigger picture for society, fighting for the people who couldn't speak for themselves, that right there for me is a big deal. And it's a very serious lesson that I cannot left untalked about.
Well, many times we are told that he was told to leave Uganda. He was told that, Archbishop, your life is in danger. You better leave Uganda. But he said, I'm born here. I'll fight if it is to meet my Creator. If I'm dying for the truth, then I'm ready to go. That is the man we are celebrating, we are commemorating on a day like this. And of course, when we talk about Uganda, I want to believe that the pillar of development of our country has always been religion. If you read our history very well, from when Mutesa wrote that letter to invite the missionaries, look at the schools, look at the hospitals, and religion has a very big factor in the politics of our country, in the economy of our country. But Felix, there has also been times when we've seen various politicians coming out and believing that maybe religious leaders should have, one use the word I quote, do what you understand best. Because if you move into this terrain that is dirty, he said in politics, insults are there. So when you come into here, we may end up insulting the church. Maintain your lane. To what extent should we see religious leaders engage into political, trying to put things right, maybe in one way or the other?
I don't know who said that statement, and I'm glad you didn't mention the person, but whoever it was.
I'm not bold enough to, maybe.
Absolutely. Clearly, you will not be a matter. But anyway, you choose not to be one. But such a statement would definitely be in the tainted corridors of myopia or myopic statement. I'll tell you what, every man is a political animal. Every man. Every man. Religious personalities or vocational personalities in relation to religion, they drink tea, they take sugar, they buy fuel, you know, and all these are not determined by church. These are determined by state. They use the roads we use. Now, in fact, there could be more consumers of state products than even other, what you want to call civilians in terms of this. Because for them, remember, they have schools, they have hospitals, they have these missionaries, they have AIDS organization, all these things. It would be unfair for a leader to think of it that way. But I'll say, the reason why most of the religious personalities or leaders have been put on the spot for not to make comment about political actions is because politicians want to hide under this whole thing of being non-partisan. Now, when people make comments about what's wrong, it is partisan. When we talk about what's right, it is not partisan. Now, politicians just want to play politics on religious leaders.
But some believe that religious leaders should distance themselves from any political utterance
because
they preside over people of mixed feelings.
I have given you the bedrock of political participation is anchored in the statement I said earlier that every human being is a political animal because every political policy affects that, and by that you're qualified to act. Don't religious leaders vote?
They do vote.
So why do you want them to vote? Or why do you go to look for votes in churches? How many times haven't you seen all over these politicians all over churches
donating during campaign,
trying to fool everyone around? But why do you go to them to seek their votes if you think their mouths should be shut? You get the point? By virtue of being a citizen, whether a night dancer, whether a father, whether a priest or a imam, by virtue, the qualification of political participation is citizenship. The only person we can say keep quiet, you say, are you Ugandan? That is the only disqualification. If you are from Congo, Kirabo shall tell you, Kirabo, don't disturb people. But the virtue that you can prove you're Ugandan, you qualify to be politically active. Now, the problem, and this is what happened to the likes of Archbishop John and Luwum, is that politicians have a tendency of playing politics in everything. Politicians have a tendency of not wanting to hear the truth as seen from the other side. That's why when you go to politics, people are comfortable to have opposition and government. But why should there be opposition if there is a government? Because that is a style and fashion of politics. Now, when you go to religion, when people like Nyonyintono stand out and say, this cannot be happening.
The continuous killing.
This is not fair. This is not fair. Now, that is seen as the opposition. Because remember, during that time, there was no opposition. So, because church always came out to criticize, there were no critics in those regimes. The absence of political critics brought the problems for the church. That's why every person who came out to make a statement against anything would be seen as government opposition. Then, the reason why today it is not permissible, because there is already opposition which is doing. Now, religious leaders would come in and behind the shadow.
Usually, in current day, they make utterances through interreligious council. They have a press conference.
Actually, not even there, because whatever they are saying has been said by the Kirabos in opposition, or just an example. You understand? But then, the absence of the political opposition made it so open, obvious that even if you were a villager and you said something, it would be recognized because there was no. Now, the murder or the death of Janan Luwum was also another evidence internationally of the bad political administration then that happened in these countries. And that was related to post-independent times. The failure of countries like Uganda, and by the way, all the countries around us had these issues. When you go to Kenya, Tanzania, there were a lot of persecutions. Rwanda here, there was genocide still. The tantrums of genocide were still quite evident. That the failure, our failure to handle post-independent political administration was the cause of such. That we had tyrant leaders, the juntas of this world. That's why, because if you check, we have never had a statement that Janan Luwum lied.
Because it was all obvious.
So he was killed for the obvious truth that even if it wasn't Janan Luwum who had said it, anyone else would have said it.
But the
now,
impact could have
the
been
only
different.
problem was that every other person was seeing what was happening, but it took someone. It would take someone
of influence and
courage. That's what Philo was saying. The charisma that he exhibited is what we celebrate today. And tell you what, on his burial, you know, he was rushedly buried at his village. Then, of course, because he was a big man, they organized something decent in Mirembe. Now, on that day, something beautiful happened. When you read in the books, in that particular book, the gentleman wrote was
the dungeons of Nakasero by Wood Okello.
The lady, one of the ladies who was preparing the banquet, the bouquets, the flowers, made a very popular statement, and it is remembered majorly. Or we were on the date, I think, of which will be the 19th of February, I think. When the lady said that this that we see today is like a seed that has been sowed for Christianity. Now imagine how many years passed, over 40, and we are still talking about Janan Luwum.
And every year people make pilgrimage to
even our
village.
Absolutely.
To visit and pray.
And that's what people don't understand about religion. That martyrdom, and that's the thing about our progress, that martyrdom is almost like a springboard. Even you go to the Bible, read the places where Jesus went and there was just later on ministry had to happen there.
Fellow, in the interest of time, what lessons does, and I want to be very specific, your generation learn from this? Because there are those that were there, they have read, they have understood, they still have these fresh memories. Yes. I was speaking to one old man in our village, is called Nsereko something, and I was discussing about Janan Luwum. And you see, this is still live in their lives. They'll tell you those days, those times. Now here comes you.
Yes.
Totally, some of us who weren't there and maybe don't have memories. Yes. But what is there to learn, to uphold, even as you move on with the life?
Well, when you look at us, I will be very honest. We have become...
I love the fact that you start with that.
we have become a totally individualistic generation, okay? You don't absolutely care about what is happening around you. You don't know what is happening to the people in the community next to you. You are personally all about yourself. We are, I could say, we are self-involved. We are not bothered about the rest of society. I could say we have lost the touch of social responsibility. We have probably left this to the older generation, and that is why you find like our parents or even people who are way older than us telling us, but you people, you do not know why some of these things are happening. It's because you're not focusing on the rest of everybody. You think because you have made your money, you think because detaching yourself from the politics, because most of the youth right now, they have detached themselves from politics, but whether you like it or not, it still affects you in one way or another. So I think we need to carry on that spirit of social responsibility that Archbishop Janan Luwum showed, and we also need to be able to promote the values and consciousness of us as a country. This is something that he did put out there. When he came out to speak for some of these people, he actually showed that he was bothered, he was concerned to the brim. So our generation, really, I will say it without any fear, we have a lot to work on. We really do have a lot to work on.
In a minute, please.
Yeah, thank you. And you know that I was somewhere away from Uganda, and someone made a very good statement that resonates almost every time, that church is most divided on Sunday morning. And that was in relation to the US in particular, let me be clear. Now, black people go to black churches. It's rare to find a black man in a white. Now, that is coming here. You've seen how churches are fighting? Go to my brothers in the Pentecostal side, it is worrying. Of course, some religions are smart enough to cover up.
Yes.
Like the other religions, maybe the Catholics and Protestants. Look at the Muslim side. There is work to do. As we celebrate these days, we must continue to question ourselves. Are we still preaching the gospel as it should be, or as we want it to be? And that is a friction. Now, the reason why people like Janan Wum were willing to die, even when they were given all offers, because you broke them down, to leave, let's give you this stuff, because they were preaching the gospel as it should be, not as they would want it to be. Now, today we are listening to preachings for personality. You will change the Bible as long as it suits you. Your preaching will suit your desires.
In your favor.
These days are not meant to just go to Kororo for us to come here and make lamentations. But these days should be for us to reason with the major purpose of religion, but by far our faith. Can we be the change the world needs to see?
I love that. Can we be the change the world seeks to be? Well, today we are remembering the life of the late Archbishop Janan Lumu, who was the Archbishop of Uganda, Rwanda, Boga, Zaire, and Burundi. This man was killed or murdered on the orders of President Idi Amin, accusing him of plotting to overthrow his government, but also wanting to kill him. So he was killed, and today we remember because he stood up for the right. Let's always stand up for the truth, no matter how comfortable we may be or less affected by what is happening. But before we go, let's take a look at our poll question and of course some of the comments that are coming in.
Well, we did ask you this morning, what lessons do we learn from Christian martyrdom in Uganda? And the feedback is already trickling in. And from you, Derek, you're actually saying people like Janan and other martyrs deserve a big credit because they installed confidence in us that not even death can't stop us from standing on truth. It's very difficult to shed blood for what is right, most especially nowadays. So people like him are big pillars of Christian faith, and in the Catholic Church are elevated to the level of saints because they are worth it. The blood of Uganda matters, the seed of Christians. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you, Derek, and always for being with us. As we always get this, well, we'll be looking at the print media, but also, and of course more comments later, but I also want to leave you with a question. Do you still remember where Nile Conference Center was? And that is the millennial. Which building is now the Nile Conference Center? We'll return shortly.
Our Ugandan story isn't a new one. It's not about where we come from. It's about what can be accomplished when we're working, living, and growing together. It's about speaking the same language, the language of progress. We're Ugandans building Uganda with Ugandans, skilling Ugandans and developing competencies required in the oil and gas sector, partnering with Ugandan businesses to achieve greatness. We're here to build because at the end of the day, we're truly Ugandan.
Start your day bright and early with good morning bundles from Airtel. That's right. Enjoy brighter days with 2 GB at 5,000 shillings, valid for 24 hours. Join that morning agent meeting. Close that online business deal. Catch up with loved ones. Do it all with the most affordable data bundles. Dial *175# to buy good morning bundles from 12 a.m. to 11:59 a.m. and enjoy 2 GB, valid for 24 hours from time of purchase. Good morning bundles for the best day ahead with Airtel, the smartphone network.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning once again, and thank you so much for staying with us here on UBC. And of course, in particular, good morning, Uganda. Now it is about that time where we do take you through what's trending in the white and black. Now, starting off with, of course, the New Vision, we'll be looking at the big headline: government suspends promotional exams. I wish I would go back to school. So, and we're looking at a bridge curricula for all classes now, to say for 3 years. But of course, also still in the headlines, 4 Ugandan doctors probed over organ trade. Now, mandatory COVID-19 test at Entebbe halted, and also still, of course, they give you a couple of physics and biology in Kiswahili. That is in today's papers. And also, railway land sale. Now, Anita wants 6 ex-ministers quizzed. How farmers can grab re-up, that is big, rip big from oil sector. And of course, President Museveni now eulogizes, that is the Emori Mori. That was yesterday at the Independence Grounds there in Kololo. But also, still in the papers, we want to cross directly into the Daily Nation, where we'll be looking at Uhuru Raila reveals secret poll shocker for aspirants. Well, what are these guys plotting? Still all in the paper now. Ghosts of Hig for Ruto there. That is a question also put to you people out there. But also, teachers to enjoy enhanced maternity and paternity leave. Now, of course, there's been an amendment, and they'll be going home for 4 months, 4 good months, for those teachers who will be giving birth. We hope all of them don't end up giving birth, because we'll be teaching in schools. Now, also, I have a light bulb moment. Let's trade power for electricity. That's a good one. Now, be able to get most of these stories when you get yourself copies of the dailies. Now, be able to get copies of the New Vision, Daily Monitor, and also Daily Nation. But right now, Philo has some feedback from you, our lovely viewers, in relation to a poll question, and of course, she'll also be taking you through what's on the roads. Is there traffic on the roads, Philo, today?
Well, for a national public holiday, it's usually a good day for almost every Ugandan that wants to enter citizen. But there are areas like Chikubo.
Someone has been in Chikubo this morning, Steve. I don't
there
know why.
There is usually human traffic there.
but anyway, Philo, on to the feedback from your end.
Well, we did ask you this early morning some of the lessons that we can take from Martyrdom in Uganda, or as Ugandans, and this is in relation to the day that we are celebrating today, saying that it has a touch of martyrdom, it has a touch of sacrifice, it also has a touch of conviction. Well, coming in from a gentleman here who says politics and religion are two inseparable things. Read your history well. How did the colonizers come to Africa? The Bible was leading, followed by a gun. These are two games played in the same ground and concurrently. Then how do you separate them? Well, he's actually questioning and telling us the real intense relationship between the two. Well, coming in from you, Okumu Jafet, you're saying Luwum was an unknown patriotic bishop who was fighting for human rights in the umbrella of Christianity. It's really so sad what Amin did to that iconic figure and the Son of God. Well, and coming in from you, Wangila Bernard, you're saying the lesson you learned from Janan Luwum is that he was a stronger, faithful, fearless leader and freedom fighter. Well, keep the feedback flowing in, where we'll surely be sharing it with the rest of the world. And of course, I would definitely leave this to you to sit down and question yourself. How many times have you decided to come out and stand for the truth, stand for the right, despite the consequences? Well, if you haven't done that yet, maybe you need to think about starting to do it, because it's never too late. Well, getting to the traffic situation, well, I can tell you that it's mostly good news. And considering that it is a public holiday, several people really decide to cut out all these movements to town. Others get to town because they must, because they cannot avoid it. So As you can see, most of the roads here, especially in the city center, are all green lined. And as always, as I preach to you every single morning, is that the green lines clearly tell you this is a very clear passage, crystal clear. You don't have to be afraid of using it to get in or get out of the city center. And yes, speaking of the city center, as you can see, most of these roads here, yeah, we do have a few red spots here and there. We do have some orange spots here and there. As you can see, Chira Road on Bukoto Street, it clearly shows you that there is a little bit of traffic, traffic build-up, but even then, when you notice they're a bit so small, so it shouldn't be worrying. And I also have a feeling that they will clear as the day goes by, because, well, it's in the morning. Those who have to travel or those who have to use the road will have to use them, so maybe that could account for the traffic build-up. But all the way to the city center, if you're using the bypass, if you are using the Naguru Road, if you are also using some of these shortcuts that are always heavily packed in the morning, I want to tell you that it's very, very, very free. Maybe you should look out for the areas around Kololo, where we do expect this function to be happening, and His Excellency will also be there to honor it. But even then, there is absolutely nothing for you to worry about. If you are approaching city center, it's also possible for you. We are looking at also Lugogo bypass, as you can see, typically green. On a normal day, this would be dotted red, it would be dotted orange, but today being a public holiday, it's absolutely fine. And it connects you all the way to this Kampala Road, or slightly before Kampala Road. Actually, when you are getting to the Ginger Road, it's still very, very okay for you to use. But also, you need to take note that if you're coming from Nakawa and you are joining from the new Port Bell Road to get into the main road, there is a red spot here which shows you that this is a bit heavy with the traffic. Now, Nakawa is one of those towns, or it's one of the outskirt towns where there is serious business going on. So, of course, it is expected to be a little bit heavy with traffic because there are people getting in and out there. We have a market over there. We have other several businesses that are running around that area. So, when you see this red spot, it clearly tells you that it makes sense. And as you go on, you see this orange spot here telling you that there is a little bit of traffic build up there. But again, it shouldn't be really worrying, because as you go ahead, it's absolutely very, very fine for you. But as you continue getting to Access Road, that is right after the roundabout and around the Ministry of Internal Affairs, as you can see, there is a junction there that connects people from Yusuf Lule Road, people from De Winton Street, people from Access Road. You can see there is a little bit, some orange lines here, as you can see, which tells you there is a build-up. But again, what explains this is that because we have the main point that is linking many people from several shortcuts, like I told you, Yusuf Lule Road, and also connecting from this Ginger Road, definitely there is an expectation of a little bit of traffic build-up, because there are many motorists who are trying to find their way around. This being the connection point, it is definitely expected. But otherwise, if you're leaving the city center, if you are entering the city center, it's a very, very clear way for you. So maybe if you have businesses to run in town, today could be an ideal day, only hoping that it works in your favor, because at least there are certain things you're very sure of. You know you'll be able to get to your place of destination in time. Well, you have to you can actually use also, if you're coming from Wandegea, you can also use most of those routes, because they're very, very free, as I am seeing here. But also you need to take note of this area around Pilkington Road. Now, if you're coming from that side, there is a little bit of a traffic build up here, as you can see this red spot. But again, like I told you, they are just dotted, they are not all over the place, so it's really, really manageable. Remember that our poll question is still running. Do be part of it and tell us what you think. But also taking you back to the press review this morning in the Daily Monitor, we are looking at one of the major headlines, which is Uganda drops COVID testing for travelers. Now, this would definitely mean that it works well, especially when it comes to tourism. If we are having people who are entering the city or entering the country, I think it's a good move, even when you're leaving the country. But also taking a look at how government decries low uptake, as over 10 million doses of COVID vaccines are our idol. So again, this is a calling for you to go and get yourself vaccinated, because just because we are fully open, it does not necessarily mean that you don't have to get vaccinated anymore. If you did take the first dose, make sure you do a follow-up. Now we also take a look at court orders arrest of lawyer Mabirizi, and also right there we see Zake faces disciplinary action over abusive tweets. And also we look at Mbara Mutslo to ban spitting in public. This has never been public etiquette. The fact that we have to bring it to a national level, it says much about us and our discipline. And also looking at a part of what is making the news: I killed septic tank victims, God tells police. And we also look at home section, where short of funds, you need to go for concrete blocks. Well, we are getting into the arena of climate, and of course Mollen is here to tell you that. But before we get into that, Mollen, what do you think about Mbara mooting law to ban spitting in public? This I find very disturbing.
Actually, I think it's a bad thing that needs to be, tarnished for sure. But this has also been related to tribes. There are tribes that are, I don't want to mention it in air, but there are tribes specifically for them when they are cursing. And I think it's like tradition for them. So for them to curse, they have to spit. And I think that is all old tradition that really need to be burnt. And I'm happy Mbara is doing that. Kudos.
Well, I think it goes without saying. It's just public etiquette. Yeah, you don't have to unnecessarily, spit in public. Find a place where you can do all that. Well, that's it from the traffic updates this morning. I leave you to Mollen, Kenyena, who will be giving you more concerning the climate and probably the weather forecast. And of course, more amazing programming still continues right here on Good Morning Uganda on UBC TV, where we do seek to inspire. Have a wonderful National Public Holiday. And like we have been telling you, use it to evaluate yourself. I am Philomena Mastiko.
Well, thank you, Philo. And on that note, I'll also add to the amazingness of this day. I'll tell you what is amazing to look out for as we celebrate our national holiday here. But there's also something that you can look out for, and that is a full moon. Now, we do have a few days in a year where we get to observe the full moon. Now, February's full moon is going to be tonight, and that is around 10 p.m. So that means that starting that moment, if you're anywhere that you don't have a lot of cloud cover in the sky, just look up. It's going to be there. Now, what is different about the full moon is that you can actually see all it, the way it appears, and it is also said that it would stay around even when the sun comes out. So if it traverses through the night into the morning, those are one of the mornings you wake up, you're still seeing the moon, but you're seeing the sun as well. So that's a rare one, is one to look out for, and that will be showing across different places within the world. And NASA this morning did bring out some of the images that were actually starting to be seen across the skies, and that is one from NASA that is already being captured from the skies, showing how it's going to traverse the universe. And it's just that one chance that you have to get to look into the full moon. Now, this one is actually nicknamed Snow Moon. According to how it appears, it's a little bit more like snowy. That is how it ended up with the nickname Snow Moon. We always look out for it in February, and last year's was actually on the 27th. Now this year, according to the movement across the universe, the apparent movement, that means that we get to see it on a different day still in February the next year, so which brings us to the 16th of February. This is one good one. I like moon viewing, and people who really want to gaze at the moon, this is the one time to actually look out for it. But also what is amazing is that there has been a ghost city that did get revealed, and I was talking to Felix this morning. He says, why is it being called a ghost city? Well, it is something you actually have seen in the movies and don't know whether there is a reality of it, but guess what? There is a reality. Now this is a place that disappeared 30 years ago, and this is between the Spanish-Portuguese border. Now one area, the Kirabo, that is in Spain, got frozen in a flooding that did happen in 1992. Now what happened is that most of all the buildings that were there got covered up with the floods, and this took quite some time, so meaning that they couldn't recover it, and it was impossible to recover it. So what happened is that they actually made that place a reservoir, and now recently there has been drought across that area, the northwestern part of Spain. And the drought did stretch around for quite some time now. We have been talking about this drought. Now, after a series of those events, the drought events, government did come out to say that they are going to also reduce on the use of reservoirs for electricity production. Now, this is one of the reservoirs that was, stopped. When that happened, with the water, stopping to flow, all of a sudden it was revealed that there has been a frozen city down there, down the reservoir. And now it's actually attracting tourists. People are coming there to see what seems magical, just like that 30 years ago. And people who have been residents of this place, they did see what happened. There was a story this morning about an old man who saw this happen and he was tearing up. But guess what? We're talking about bottles this morning. Now that must have been a house of someone who really loved their drink. Now it's amazing how that stayed around, but it was frozen. So that means when something is frozen, it will stay in one place. So that's why you can actually see in the picture, even the bottle that was left on the window is still there. So what happens is that as the snow melts from the place, as the ice melts from the place, everything will remain intact. And that's how this ghost city that apparently we should not call ghost city but frozen city has appeared across that place. It's amazing how nature plays out, and this is something that did catch my eyes this morning. You look at also the fact that this has been associated with the drought incidences that we're talking about globally, and northwestern part of Spain has actually been dealing with this. So far it's one of the top records in terms of the drought cases that have ever happened across Spain. This has been long stretched, and so far even the national Met agencies did come out to send news out there, and also government is saying that at least 6 dams will be closed off, meaning that they're trying to save water. So if you're not using it for electricity generation, that means they're also making sure that people are getting the water, and this is going to be a huge strain on the economy, but at least there is a plan to make sure that at least people are getting some of that water. So that was really some quite amazing pictures. But also what is amazing, as you sit back home and enjoy the public holiday, you can take a read, and this is in the arena of climate change. Now, there is a good book that did come out from Michael, and it is called The Fight to Take Back Our Planet. Now, this is amazing because he does talk about, all the events that have happened while we try to take back our planet. That means climate action. But he also reveals a lot that has been happening, how we got here. And that is something that is really amazing to read about. There are a lot of skepticism when it comes to climate change. There is a lot of fake news out there, but it is books from scientists like this that get to show you the picture. And this has been translated into a language that can be easily understood, and it is something to look out for. He also talks about the new climate war. Now, in his book, he shows how we got here, who is fueling this war, and how far can we go in terms of climate action. What can be done to make sure that we're not in the same state. Now, this book is really amazing. And Michael did also consider some of the reports that came out from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change on the trajectory of what we could be looking at even 50 years from now. So at least there is someone doing something to make sure that everyone understands what's going on. Because when we talk science, most of the time, people do not translate that. People do not get to know what we're talking about. But when you have books that are translating that and making sure that they relate to the everyday scenarios that happen even around you, then you can understand what is at stake and why we actually need our planet A. There is no planet B. Also, in the new climate war, he shows how fossil fuel companies have waged a 30-year campaign to deflect blame and responsibility and delay action on climate change. And he also offers a battle plan on how we can save our planet. Now, where do you get this book? It's already online and can also be gotten on orders. That is, if you actually look out for all his pages from Michael E. Mann and also search for the new climate war, you will be able to get this book. But also, I like the fact that he's putting in what is most contributing to climate change right now, and that is the use of fossil fuels, and how these companies have actually continued to ignore the fact that there needs to be action, because that's where we're getting all the fuel from that is getting us in a place of global temperature rise, but we can save our planet. And he also calls out some of the companies in that book I all know the fuel companies that have been at the forefront, and I'll say it because they have been even put to courts in some countries on having contributed much on the rise in temperatures and also continuing to fuel in greenhouse gas emissions. And top of that has been Shell actually, and recently people are calling out Total Energies for not looking out for the climate. Now they have also been on their defense, they are putting across lines of how they're actually making sure that they are trapping carbon. Shell did come out to actually show a plant where they are able to capture carbon. But in the long term, we actually found out that even when the plant is capturing carbon, it is still, emitting more emissions into the atmosphere. So this is something that people need to look out for. And while you think about investing in fossil fuels, think about how you can save your planet. This is a good read. I would recommend it. Something, at least read a page or two for a public holiday, and we're good. But guess what? We also want to take you through what could happen on your public holiday, and that is the weather that is happening across the country right now. Now, good news as well, because we are starting off with mostly a clear day across much of the country. We're looking at mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. And we did have some rains yesterday, most especially across Lake Victoria and parts of southwestern Uganda. And those actually kept temperatures a bit down. We have had a series or episodes of high temperatures across the country. So when you have those rains, now the most important part is that we're also developing the seasonal forecast that is for the next month until May. Now that is still ongoing, coming in from the East African Prediction Center, that is ECPAC, still ongoing, and we'll be getting that forecast soon as it is out. But for now, we're still looking into mostly dry weather, especially for northern Uganda. You look at eastern Uganda as well, much areas within the central still dealing with those dry conditions. But we also have those local effects. Now, usually what happens with areas around Lake Victoria, and that also explains the rains that we had yesterday, also we could be looking at most of those developing into today, is that we do have those local effects. Now we have Lake Victoria also chewing in to help enhance the wet activities across areas of Kampala, Wakiso, and Tebe. You look at that side of Jinja and Tororo as well. Now that is usually just being influenced locally and brings us rains, but doesn't mean that we are already starting off with our rainy season. So this is just early signs, but we haven't yet started our rainy season. Also look into southwestern Uganda. Now usually also that area gets effects from the Congo forests, some of the moisture that comes over from there moving towards the country. Actually, if you look at that rainy system this morning that is across Congo, that is where most of the rains are, and also that is where we have some of those forests that influence our weather even here in Uganda. So those areas usually have rains, and sometimes if we have a good wind pattern towards the country, that means we have to get some of them be reflected towards the country and brings in rains for western Uganda. But unfortunately for this morning, it seems like that is moving westwards, so there is no more advection towards the country, and still western Uganda could be looking at much of those dry weather conditions. But I also want to take you through a look ahead into what you can expect for the week and some of the weather patterns that were analyzed to look into actually the day starting yesterday into today as well, up to the 22nd. We'll be going through that and see which areas are still in the spot for having much more of the rains as we head into dry season. Now more of that also comes in from ECPAC, that is the Regional Center for Climate Prediction. And if you look at the total rains that are expected from this kind of analysis, most of those are going to still be around Lake Victoria. That is where we expect much more of those rains. Those in green colors, orange, you also look into yellow. That means that we might be looking at a little bit of rains across the southern sector most especially. But it also highlights northwestern part of the country, also within those orange colors. That means we could be looking into rainy conditions across that area. But take a look into northern Uganda and Karamoja region in open colors there. That means that that area will continue to have dry conditions, a little bit of, around Midwestern across the parts of Masindi, Hoima. That area might also have a reduction in wet weather activities. But where you see the green colors is where I might have much more of those rains. Now what is highlighted is actually the Mount Elgon Highlands, where we have Mbale there, Bududa. That area might continue to have more rains compared to the rest of the country, and that is what we might be looking at from up to the 22nd of February. But you also look into, in terms of temperatures, We also have that especially towards between 20 to 28 in terms of maximum temperatures expected over the area. Now, where we're seeing much more of the high temperatures, we look into northern Uganda still. You look at that area, northwestern, still having a little bit of orange colors. So that means that that might be a little bit higher and going for 28 to 32 degrees centigrade. We could be looking at much more higher temperatures over there. But the rest of the country seems to be doing quite normal in terms of temperatures, normal for this time of the year. We also look at the southern part of the country, which is in a little bit of white colors there. That is where we expect temperatures to be a bit down between the 20s to 20 to 24. Quite some cold weather expected over there, but that will also be going up to the 22nd of this month. Now, you look at some of the temperature anomalies. Now, with the anomalies, you look at areas that are likely to be slightly, above the normal and how far it can stretch. But still, the analysis will show you that at least the northern part of the country is where we do expect those temperatures to be a bit, high. But the rest of the country seems to be doing normal. Now, don't mind the deep colors there, especially going for northwestern Kenya in reds. Those are also expected to have a little bit of increase in temperatures, and that might be looking into dry weather for that area. But at least the good news is that we are still expecting a little bit of rains, especially across the Lake Victoria basin, and we can have that at least as we're waiting for that rainy season to be forecast to be out, and look into what can be done for that season. I know this is highly anticipated, and there are a lot of sectors that do depend on these rains, so we're actually eagerly waiting for that forecast, and I will be giving you details. But for now, I want to leave you at that. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up with Robert, and later we'll also be having sports. Ruben is here to take you through that. Now, I want to wish you a good day as you celebrate, as you capture on those memories of what can be done. Be that person that stands up, be that person that is bold enough to stand out for what is right, no matter the consequences. Let's bring back that martyrdom that was there. And I think in the end, you will be celebrated, or you will be recognized for what you're doing, especially if it's for the good of your community, for the good of your family, for the good of what you see is the right thing to do. That's my message to you this morning. Well, I'll leave you at that. Have a good day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
Authentically symbolic and insightful.
We should work so hard to evacuate this power.
Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odong.
How to get points. Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN. Raising voices.
As a mother, my children depend on me to make this world a safer place for them. I'm not afraid to act when I see violence in the home and in my community. I promise to talk to my neighbors and friends about how we can nurture and protect the children.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising voices.
Your MBs are now bigger MBs, only on MTN. When you load a daily bundle of 250 shillings, you no longer get 15 MBs, you get 25 MBs. For 500 shillings, you no longer get 40 MBs, you get 65 MBs. For 1,000 shillings, it's no longer 100 MBs, it's 165 MBs. Dial *150*10# or use the My MTN app to load bigger daily bundles, only on MTN.
Patriotism is a feeling of love, devotion, and the willingness to sacrifice for one's country.
I say no to corruption because I put my country first. I choose peace over violence because I put my country first.
I love Uganda. I serve Uganda. I sacrifice for Uganda. I'm loyal to Uganda. I love my soul.
Be patriotic. Uganda first. This message is brought to you by the National Secretariat for Patriotism Co Uganda, Office of the President.
Raising voices.
As a mother, my children depend on me to make this world a safer place for them. I'm not afraid to act when I see violence in the home and in my community. I promise to talk to my neighbors and friends about how we can nurture and protect the children.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising voices.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.